The first tendrils of smoke curled under the office door just as Marcus finished mopping the hallway floor. A sharp, chemical stench stung his nostrils. Something was burning, fast. Then came the muffled scream from inside. Marcus dropped the mop. His muscles tensed before his mind could catch up, instinct screaming at him to move. The polished marble floor reflected the flickering orange glow seeping through the door crack. He grabbed the handle. Locked. From the other side, a voice he knew too well, raspy, panicked. Somebody help. Mr. Calloway. The man who had sneered at him just hours ago, who had muttered under his breath when Marcus dared to meet his eyes. The man who made sure Marcus never forgot his place. Another scream. The smoke thickened, black and choking. Marcus fumbled for his keys, fingers slick with sweat. The fire alarm still hadn't gone off. No sirens. No help. Just him. The lock clicked. He shoved the door open, and the heat hit him like a wall. Flames licked up the curtains, devouring paperwork, melting the frames of Calloway's prized diplomas. And there, trapped behind his overturned desk, his face streaked with soot, eyes wide with terror, was the man who had never once treated him like a human being. Calloway's gaze locked onto Marcus. For a heartbeat, neither moved. Then the ceiling groaned. A support beam cracked, sparks raining down between them. Marcus lunged forward. The heat was unbearable, pressing against Marcus's skin like a living thing. Smoke coiled around him, clawing at his lungs with every ragged breath. Across the room, Calloway coughed violently, his face twisted in pain as he struggled against the fallen desk pinning his leg. His expensive suit was smeared with ash, his usually slick-back hair now matted with sweat and soot. Marcus hesitated, just for a second. Why should I risk my life for him? The thought flashed through his mind, sharp and bitter. This was the man who had called him boy in front of the whole office, who had made sure Marcus got the worst shifts, who had laughed when the other executives made jokes about the help. But then Calloway's eyes met his again, not with arrogance this time, but raw, animal fear. Another beam groaned overhead, and a chunk of plaster crashed down beside Marcus, sending up a spray of embers. He didn't have time to think. Hold on, Marcus shouted over the roar of the flames. He yanked off his janitor's jacket, wrapping it around his forearm as he stepped into the inferno. The carpet burned beneath his shoes, the soles sticking with every step. Calloway wheezed, his voice barely audible. I can't move. Marcus grabbed the edge of the desk, the wood scorching his palms. He gritted his teeth and heaved. The muscles in his arms screamed, but the desk barely budged. Push, Marcus barked. Calloway shoved weakly, his face contorted in pain. It's my leg. Marcus adjusted his grip, planting his foot against the floor. With one brutal lurch, the desk shifted just enough for Calloway to drag himself free. The moment his leg came loose, he cried out. A gash ran from his knee to his ankle, dark blood soaking through his torn slacks. The fire was spreading faster now, devouring the walls, the ceiling, the air itself. Marcus grabbed Calloway's arm, hauling him up. The older man swayed, his weight unsteady. We have to go. Marcus said, pulling him toward the door. Calloway stumbled, his breath coming in shallow gasps. The files. Marcus didn't stop. They're burning. Move. They staggered into the hallway, the cooler air hitting them like a slap. Behind them, the office collapsed in a shower of sparks, the flames roaring as if furious at their escape. But the building wasn't safe yet. The smoke was thicker out here, snaking along the ceiling in dark, choking waves. The emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across the empty cubicles. Marcus tightened his grip on Calloway's arm. Stairs. This way. Calloway coughed, his steps faltering. Elevator. Are you crazy? Marcus snapped. Power's gonna go any second. As if on cue, the overhead lights died with a pop, plunging them into near darkness. Only the dull red glow of the exit signs remained, staining the smoke a sickly crimson. Marcus dragged Calloway forward, his own lungs burning. Every step felt heavier, the air thinner. He could hear the fire spreading, walls cracking, glass shattering somewhere deeper in the building. Then, from the stairwell, a sound that made his blood freeze. A woman's scream. Marcus froze. Calloway sagged against him, his breath ragged. Who else is here? Marcus hadn't clocked out yet. The night security guard, Rosa, always stayed late. And if she was still inside? He turned to Calloway, his voice low and urgent. Can you make it down on your own? Calloway's grip tightened on Marcus's shoulder. You're not leaving me. For a second, Marcus almost laughed. The irony was too much. The man who had never trusted him now clung to him like a lifeline. But there was no time to argue. Then keep up, Marcus said, pulling him toward the stairwell. The door was hot to the touch. He kicked it open, and a gust of smoke billowed up from below. The scream came again, closer this time. Desperate. Rosa was on the landing between floors, collapsed against the railing. Her uniform was singed, her face streaked with tears. When she saw Marcus, her eyes widened. Marcus, thank God. He didn't waste words. Can you walk? She nodded shakily, pushing herself up. The third-floor exit's blocked. Fires everywhere. Marcus's stomach dropped. That left only one way out. The basement, he said. Service exit to the loading dock. Calloway swayed, his face pale. That's 5 flights down. You want to burn alive instead? Marcus shot back. No one argued after that. They moved as fast as they could, Marcus supporting Calloway while Rosa limped ahead, her breath coming in sharp, pained gasps. The stairwell was a nightmare. Smoke so thick it was like swimming through ink, the distant roar of flames echoing up the shaft. Then, halfway down, the building shuddered. A deafening crack split the air as part of the ceiling gave way above them. Marcus barely had time to shove Calloway against the wall before debris rained down, blocking the stairs below. Rosa screamed. Marcus shielded his face as dust and sparks filled the air. When the rumbling stopped, the way down was gone, buried under rubble. Calloway's voice was barely a whisper. We're trapped. Marcus's pulse pounded in his ears. He turned, scanning the stairwell. There had to be another way. Then he saw it. A maintenance hatch in the wall. Small, rusted, barely noticeable. Air ducts, he said. Rosa coughed. You can't be serious. You got a better idea? Marcus snapped. Calloway stared at him, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, he nodded. Marcus wrenched the hatch open. The metal screeched in protest, but it gave way. Inside, the duct was narrow, dark, and claustrophobic, but clear. Go, he ordered Rosa. She hesitated only a second before crawling in. Calloway followed, his movements stiff with pain. Marcus went last, pulling the hatch shut behind them. The duct was stifling, the metal radiating heat from the fire below. Every inch forward was a struggle, the sharp edges scraping against Marcus's arms as he dragged himself along. Then, from up ahead, Rosa's voice, tight with fear. Marcus! He craned his neck. The duct ended, opening into a vertical shaft. A drop into darkness. Calloway's breath hitched. You expect us to jump? Marcus peered down. No ladder. No way to gauge how far the fall was. But going back wasn't an option. He met Calloway's eyes. You trust me? For the first time, there was no sneer. No condescension. Just a man staring death in the face. Calloway swallowed hard. Then he nodded. Marcus turned back to the shaft. And let go. The darkness swallowed Marcus whole. For one terrifying second, there was nothing but the rush of air, the sickening lurch of freefall, then impact. His knees buckled as he hit the ground, the force jarring up his spine. Pain exploded through his legs, but he rolled with the momentum, barely avoiding a full collapse. Gasping, he scrambled to his feet. The shaft had dumped them into some kind of maintenance tunnel, low-ceilinged, lined with pipes, the air thick with the stench of burning wires. Above him, Rosa landed with a thud, followed by Calloway, who hit the concrete with a grunt of pain. You alive? Marcus rasped. Calloway groaned, clutching his injured leg. Barely. Rosa was already moving, her flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. This way, the loading docks got to be close. Marcus hauled Calloway up again, ignoring the older man's hiss of pain. No time for gentleness. The fire above them was spreading. He could hear it in the distant groan of metal, the occasional pop of something exploding deeper in the building. They stumbled forward, the tunnel narrowing in places, forcing them to duck under low-hanging pipes. The heat was still oppressive, clinging to them like a second skin. Sweat dripped into Marcus's eyes, stinging. Then voices. Marcus froze, holding up a hand. Rosa stopped instantly, her breath shallow. Calloway swayed beside him, his face ashen. Up ahead, around a bend in the tunnel, 2 figures argued in harsh whispers. Told you this was too fast. We had to move. The old man was getting suspicious. Marcus's pulse spiked. He knew that first voice. Hendricks, one of Calloway's junior executives. A smarmy, too-polished suit who'd once accidentally spilled coffee on Marcus's uniform and never apologized. Rosa's fingers dug into Marcus's arm. "Arson?" her wide eyes asked. He gave the barest nod. Calloway stiffened. "That little shit," he breathed, barely audible. Marcus clamped a hand over his mouth. Too late. The voices cut off. A beat of silence. Then, "Who's there?" Marcus didn't think. He shoved Calloway toward Rosa. "Run." Footsteps pounded toward them. They bolted, Calloway's limp slowing them down. Behind them, a flashlight beam swung wildly, illuminating the tunnel in jagged bursts. "Stop them," Hendricks snarled. A gunshot cracked, the bullet ricocheting off a pipe inches from Marcus's head. Rosa screamed. Calloway stumbled, his bad leg giving out. Marcus caught him just as another shot rang out, this one hitting flesh. Calloway gasped. For a heart-stopping second, Marcus thought he'd been hit, but no. It was Rosa. She crumpled, clutching her shoulder, blood seeping between her fingers. Marcus didn't stop. He grabbed her with his free arm, dragging both her and Calloway forward. The loading dock door was just ahead, a sliver of moonlight visible under the frame. Another shot. This one missed. Marcus hit the door at full speed, shoulder first. It burst open, cold night air hitting them like a slap. They spilled onto the asphalt, the parking lot empty except for a single idling van. Engine running, headlights off. Hendricks and his partner skidded to a stop in the doorway, silhouetted by the flickering glow of the burning building behind them. "Get in the van," Marcus barked, shoving Rosa and Calloway toward it. The driver's side door flew open. A third man leapt out, security uniform, face obscured by a cap. Marcus didn't wait to see if he was friend or foe. He yanked open the passenger door, half throwing Rosa and Calloway inside before diving in after them. "Go," he roared. The van peeled out just as Hendricks took another shot. The rear window shattered, glass raining over them. Marcus twisted to look back. Hendricks was already running toward a parked car, his partner close behind. They weren't safe yet. Calloway groaned in the back seat, his face gray with pain. Rosa pressed her hand harder against her shoulder, her breathing shallow. The driver kept his eyes on the road, his grip white-knuckled on the wheel. "Where to?" Marcus opened his mouth, then froze. He knew that voice. Slowly, the driver turned his head. Recognition hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. Oh no. The van's interior smelled of stale cigarettes and motor oil, the vibrations of the engine humming through Marcus's bones as he stared at the driver. The dim glow of the dashboard lights revealed a face he hadn't seen in years, one he'd hoped never to see again. Jamal. The name left Marcus's lips like an accusation. His older brother didn't flinch, just tightened his grip on the steering wheel as he swerved around a corner. The van's tires screeched against wet pavement, rainwater spraying up from the gutters as they barreled down the empty downtown streets. Rosa gasped in pain from the back seat, her fingers slick with blood where she clutched her shoulder. Calloway slumped beside her, his breathing ragged, his expensive suit jacket soaked through with sweat and soot. Neither seemed to register the tension thickening the air between Marcus and Jamal. Not yet. Marcus's pulse hammered in his throat. "What the hell are you doing here?" Jamal's jaw clenched. "Saving your ass, apparently." The van hit a pothole, jostling them all violently. Calloway groaned, his head lolling against the window. "Pull over," Marcus demanded. "She needs help. And they're still behind us," Jamal snapped, jerking his chin toward the rearview mirror. Marcus twisted in his seat. Two sets of headlights sliced through the darkness, gaining fast. Hendricks wasn't giving up. Rosa whimpered, her voice thin with pain. "Why? Why are they shooting at us?" Jamal's knuckles whitened on the wheel. "Because they weren't supposed to leave witnesses." The words landed like a physical blow. Marcus stared at his brother. "You knew about this?" A muscle twitched in Jamal's temple. He didn't answer. The van careened onto the freeway ramp, the engine roaring as Jamal floored it. Rain pelted the windshield in heavy sheets, the wipers struggling to keep up. The pursuing cars matched their speed, one pulling up alongside them. Marcus barely had time to shout, "Get down," before gunfire erupted. Bullets punched through the van's side panel. Rosa screamed. Calloway threw himself over her instinctively, his body shielding hers as glass shattered. Jamal swore violently, and yanked the wheel, sideswiping the attacking car. Metal shrieked as the vehicles collided, sending the other car spinning across the wet asphalt. One down, but the second pursuer accelerated, ramming their bumper. The van fishtailed wildly. Jamal fought for control, his biceps straining as he wrestled with the wheel. Calloway lifted his head, his voice hoarse. "My phone. In my pocket. Call 911. Marcus reached over, fumbling through Calloway's jacket. His fingers closed around the sleek device, just as another impact rocked the van. The phone skittered across the floor. Jamal took a sharp exit, the van tilting dangerously on two wheels before crashing back down. The pursuing car overshot, brakes screeching as it tried to correct. "Where are you taking us?" Marcus demanded. "Somewhere safe." "Like hell." Marcus grabbed Jamal's arm. "Pull over now." Jamal shook him off. "You think this is just about some office fire?" They were laundering money through that building for months. Calloway was getting too close to the truth. Calloway's head snapped up. "What?" The van swerved into an industrial district, abandoned warehouses looming like ghosts in the storm. Jamal killed the headlights, plunging them into darkness as he veered into a loading bay. The pursuing car shot past, taillights fading into the rain. Silence fell, broken only by Rose's shallow breathing and the metallic ping of the van's cooling engine. Jamal finally turned to face Marcus. His eyes were hard. "You need to disappear. All of you." Calloway coughed, wiping blood from his lip. "I'm not running from my own company." "It's not your company anymore," Jamal said quietly. "Hendricks has the books. The cop's in his pocket. You're a dead man walking." Rain drummed on the roof, the sound hollow and relentless. Marcus studied his brother, the new scar above his eyebrow, the way his right hand kept twitching toward the glove compartment. Old habits. Bad ones. "You're working with them," Marcus realized aloud. Jamal didn't deny it. "I was supposed to clean up loose ends." His gaze flicked to Rose's bleeding shoulder, to Calloway's ashen face. "Including you." The admission hung in the air like smoke. Rosa made a small, broken sound. Calloway's breathing turned shallow. Marcus felt something inside him fracture. "So what changed?" Jamal looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time in years. "You were there." Outside, tires crunched over broken glass. Someone was coming. Jamal reached under his seat and pulled out a pistol. Marcus instinctively moved between him and the others. But Jamal just pressed the weapon into Marcus's hands. "Back exit leads to the river docks. There's a boat." Footsteps echoed in the warehouse beyond. "Jamal, go." His brother's voice broke. "And don't look back." The van door slid open. Cold rain poured in. Somewhere in the darkness, a safety clicked off. The rain fell in icy sheets as Marcus helped Rosa and Calloway out of the van, the pistol heavy in his other hand. His shoes slipped on the wet pavement as they stumbled toward the warehouse's rear entrance, the shadows swallowing them whole. Behind them, Jamal slammed the van door shut with finality. "Move," Marcus hissed, pushing them forward. Rosa clutched her wounded shoulder, her breath coming in sharp gasps. He's just going to stay?" Marcus didn't answer. He couldn't. The warehouse loomed ahead, its rusted metal door half hanging off its hinges. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of mildew and old motor oil. Abandoned machinery crouched in the darkness like sleeping beasts, their silhouettes distorted by the flashes of distant lightning through broken skylights. Calloway staggered, his injured leg buckling. Marcus caught him before he fell, the older man's weight nearly dragging them both down. "Can't," Calloway wheezed, his face slick with sweat. "Can't go much farther." "You don't have a choice," Marcus snapped. A gunshot cracked outside. Then another. Rosa flinched. They found him. Marcus tightened his grip on the pistol. Jamal had bought them time, but not much. "Through here." He nudged them toward a rusted freight elevator at the back of the warehouse, its gate half open. The cables groaned as he forced it, the ancient mechanism protesting. Calloway's eyes widened. "That thing hasn't worked in decades. It's not for going up." Marcus kicked aside a pile of rotted wooden pallets, revealing a narrow maintenance ladder leading down into pitch blackness. "Docks are below." Jamal said, "There's a boat." Another gunshot echoed from outside, closer this time. Rosa didn't hesitate. She swung herself onto the ladder, biting back a cry as the movement jarred her wounded shoulder. Calloway followed, his movements stiff with pain. Marcus went last, pulling the elevator gate shut behind them just as the warehouse door burst open. Voices echoed above them. "Check the back." The ladder trembled under their combined weight, rust flaking off under Marcus's fingers. The descent felt endless, the darkness swallowing them whole. Then, a splash. Calloway cursed. The water's rising. Marcus's boots hit submerged concrete. The river had flooded the lower level, black water lapping at his knees. Somewhere in the gloom, the faint outline of a dock floated, a small fishing boat tethered to it. Rosa reached it first, collapsing into the boat with a groan. Calloway clambered in after her, his movements sluggish. Marcus untied the line, his fingers numb with cold. A flashlight beam cut through the darkness above. There! Marcus didn't think. He fired 2 shots upward. The flashlight shattered, plunging them back into darkness. The engine sputtered to life on the 3rd try. The boat lurched forward just as boots pounded down the ladder behind them. Calloway slumped against the gunwale, his face ashen. "They'll follow." Marcus steered them into the current, the rain and river swallowing all traces of their wake. "Not if they think we're dead." Rosa's breath hitched. "Jamal, don't." Marcus's voice was rougher than he intended. The boat rocked violently as they hit open water. The storm raged around them, waves slapping against the hull. The city lights blurred in the distance, the burning office building just another ember in the downpour. Calloway stared at his hands, his voice barely audible over the storm. "All this time, Hendricks was stealing from me, and I never saw it." Marcus kept his eyes on the water. "You never looked." Lightning flashed, illuminating Rosa's pale face. "Where do we go now?" The pistol lay heavy in Marcus's lap. The answer tasted like ash. "Somewhere we can't be found." The storm swallowed them whole as the boat plowed through the churning river, each wave slamming against the hull like a hammer blow. Marcus gripped the wheel with numb fingers, the cold rain needling his face as he squinted through the downpour. The city lights had disappeared behind them, swallowed by the storm and the night. Rosa huddled in the bow, her arms wrapped around herself, shivering. Her blood had soaked through the makeshift bandage Marcus had torn from his shirt, the dark stains spreading despite the pressure she kept on the wound. Calloway slumped against the stern, his face gray with pain and exhaustion. The gash on his leg had stopped bleeding, but his breathing came in shallow, uneven gasps. Every jolt of the boat drew a fresh grimace from him. "You need to keep pressure on that," Marcus shouted over the wind, nodding at Rosa's shoulder. She shook her head, her teeth chattering. It's not deep. Just hurts like hell." Calloway lifted his head, rainwater streaming down his face. "Where are we going?" His voice was hoarse, barely audible over the storm. Marcus didn't answer right away. The boat's fuel gauge hovered just above empty, the engine sputtering occasionally as it fought the current. He scanned the black shoreline, looking for any sign of shelter. "There," he said suddenly, angling the boat toward a break in the tree line. A dilapidated dock jutted out into the water, barely visible through the rain. The wood groaned in protest as the boat bumped against it. Marcus killed the engine and leapt onto the dock, the old boards creaking ominously under his weight. He tied off the boat and turned to help the others. Rosa stood shakily, gripping the side of the boat for balance as Marcus reached for her. Calloway tried to stand, but his injured leg buckled. He caught himself on the gunwale, his knuckles white. "Come on," Marcus said, grabbing his arm. "We can't stay here." Calloway's grip tightened on Marcus's forearm. "Why are you helping me?" The question hung between them, sharp and sudden. Marcus met his eyes. "Would you rather I left you to burn?" Calloway flinched, but said nothing as Marcus hauled him onto the dock. The trees swallowed them as they stumbled inland, the undergrowth tearing at their clothes. The rain lessened slightly under the canopy, but the air was thick with the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves. After what felt like hours, a shape emerged from the gloom. A small hunting cabin, its roof sagging but intact. The door hung crookedly on its hinges, but it was shelter. Marcus kicked the door open, the pistol raised. The interior was dark, musty, but empty. A rusted wood stove crouched in one corner. A threadbare couch slumped against the far wall. Rosa collapsed onto the couch with a groan, her head falling back against the cushions. Calloway sank onto the floor beside her, his back against the wall. Marcus checked the windows, ensuring they were covered by the tattered curtains before turning his attention to the stove. A A small stack of dry wood sat beside it, and within minutes, a weak fire flickered to life, casting long shadows across the walls. Rosa held her hands toward the warmth, her fingers trembling. "How long do we stay here?" "Until morning," Marcus said. "Then we figure out our next move." Calloway let out a humorless laugh. "My next move is a hospital. I need a doctor." "You go to a hospital, you're dead," Marcus said flatly. "Hendricks will have people watching." Calloway's jaw tightened. "Then what do you suggest?" Marcus poked at the fire, sending up a shower of sparks. "We need to get out of the city. Somewhere they won't think to look." Rosa shifted, wincing as the movement pulled at her wound. "And then what? We just disappear?" "No," Marcus said. "Then we make sure Hendricks pays for what he did." Calloway studied Marcus in the firelight. "You're talking about taking down a man with connections everywhere. Money. Power." Marcus met his gaze. "And we have nothing to lose." A silence settled over the cabin, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the distant rumble of thunder. Rosa exhaled slowly. "So where do we go?" Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a set of keys, Jamal's keys. A small, rusted keychain dangled from the ring, stamped with the logo of a roadside motel on the edge of town. "I know a place," he said. Outside, the storm raged on. The motel sign flickered through the rain like a dying heartbeat, its neon letters spelling out vacancy in sputtering pink light. Marcus guided the stolen pickup truck into the farthest parking space, the engine ticking as it cooled. The windshield wipers dragged across the glass one final time before stilling, leaving the world outside blurred by rainwater. Rosa stirred in the passenger seat, her fingers pressed against the blood-stained bandage on her shoulder. "This place looks like somewhere people come to die," she muttered. In the back seat, Calloway leaned forward, his breath fogging the glass. "It's perfect." Marcus pocketed the keys and scanned the lot. Only 3 other cars sat in the cracked asphalt expanse, all covered in a fine layer of grime that suggested they hadn't moved in weeks. The office light glowed yellow behind drawn blinds. "Stay here," Marcus said, stepping out into the rain. The night air smelled of wet pavement and diesel exhaust. His shoes splashed through puddles as he approached the office, the pistol a cold weight against the small of his back. A bell jingled when he pushed the door open, the sound too cheerful for the stained carpet and yellowed walls. The clerk didn't look up from his racing magazine. "40 a night, 60 if you want clean sheets." Marcus placed Jamal's keychain on the counter. The rusted motel tag clinked against the formica. "Room 12. The clerk's eyes flicked up, then widened slightly. He was younger than Marcus expected, early 20s with acne scars and a nervous tic in his left eyelid. "You're not Jamal." "No." Marcus kept his hands visible. "He said this was a safe place." The clerk swallowed hard, his fingers twitching toward something beneath the counter. Marcus didn't move. After a long moment, the clerk exhaled through his nose and tossed a room key onto the counter. "End of the row. Backs up to the woods." His gaze darted to the parking lot. "They with you?" Marcus palmed the key. "How long has Jamal been coming here?" "Long enough." The clerk licked his lips. "Tell him Ricky says hi." The room smelled of mildew and stale cigarette smoke. Marcus locked the door behind them and immediately checked the window exits while Rosa collapsed onto one of the twin beds. Calloway limped to the bathroom and turned on the faucet, letting the water run brown before it cleared. "Charming," Calloway said, examining the cracked tile. "I suppose we should be grateful there's running water." Marcus pulled the stained curtains shut. "We're not staying long." Rosa sat up with effort, peeling back her bandage to examine the wound. The bullet had grazed her shoulder, leaving an angry red furrow in her skin. "We need supplies. Antibiotics. Clean dressings." "I'll go," Marcus said. Calloway emerged from the bathroom, drying his hands on a threadbare towel. "You can't just walk into a pharmacy looking like that." He gestured at Marcus's soot-streaked clothes, the burns on his hands. "You look like you just escaped a fire." "Because I did." Ricky proved surprisingly helpful once a $100 bill from Calloway's money clip changed hands. He produced a first aid kit from the office, along with a bottle of vodka and a stack of fast food coupons. "Closest 24-hour store is 3 miles west," Ricky said, eyeing the blood on Rosa's shirt. "But I wouldn't go there if I were you. Cameras at every register." Marcus took the supplies. "What aren't you telling us?" Ricky hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Cops came by earlier asking about Jamal. Said he was wanted for questioning in some corporate fire. His eyes flicked to Calloway, then away. They had your picture too, Mr. Calloway. Said you might be a victim. Calloway's mouth tightened. Or a suspect. The rain had eased to a drizzle when Marcus returned from his supply run. He'd stolen a car from a nearby Walmart parking lot, an old Honda with faded paint and a quarter tank of gas. The back seat was piled with bottled water, protein bars, and a prepaid burner phone. Rosa was asleep when he entered, her breathing shallow but steady. Calloway sat at the rickety table, dismantling the motel phone with a butter knife. Making friends. Marcus nodded at the phone parts. Calloway didn't look up, ensuring we're not traced. His fingers moved with surprising precision. Hendricks will have every asset at his disposal looking for us. Marcus set the supplies on the bed, including the police. Especially the police. Calloway set down the knife. Marcus, about your brother. Don't. Marcus's voice came out harsher than he intended. He took a breath. We need to focus on surviving the night. A muffled thump came from outside. Marcus was at the window in an instant, peering through the curtains. The parking lot was empty except for their stolen vehicles. Then, movement near the tree line. A shadow detaching itself from the darkness. Marcus reached for the pistol just as the motel room phone rang. The sound was deafening in the quiet room. Rosa jerked awake, her hand flying to her injured shoulder. Calloway froze, the butter knife poised above the dismantled phone. It rang again. Marcus picked up the receiver. Said nothing. Room 12. A familiar voice crackled through the line. Jamal. Back door. 2 minutes. The line went dead. Marcus dropped the receiver. Get your things. Rosa was already on her feet, stuffing supplies into a plastic bag. Calloway swept the phone parts into the trash. Is it him? We're about to find out. The back door opened onto a narrow walkway overgrown with weeds. A chain-link fence separated the motel property from the woods beyond. Marcus went first, the pistol ready. Jamal emerged from the shadows like a ghost, his face haggard, his right arm cradled awkwardly against his ribs. Blood seeped through his shirt sleeve. You're still here, he breathed. Thank God. Marcus didn't lower the gun. Who's after us? Everyone. Jamal swayed on his feet. Hendricks put a bounty on your heads. $500,000 for Calloway alive. 100 grand for each of the others. Calloway made a noise low in his throat. I'm flattered. Jamal's knees buckled. Marcus caught him just before he hit the ground, the smell of sweat and blood thick in his nostrils. Up close, he could see the bullet wound in Jamal's side, the ragged tear in his jeans where he'd been grazed by another shot. They're coming, Jamal gasped. Right behind me. As if on cue, headlights swept across the parking lot. Doors slammed. Voices called out. One of them Hendricks's cultured baritone giving orders. Marcus hauled Jamal upright. Can you run? Jamal's grin was all teeth. Try and stop me. The woods swallowed them whole, branches whipping at their faces as they crashed through the undergrowth. Behind them, shouts echoed through the night, followed by the unmistakable sound of bullets being chambered. Marcus risked a glance back. Flashlight beams danced between the trees. Too close. Far too close. Then the ground disappeared beneath his feet. The ravine opened up without warning, sending them tumbling down a steep embankment in a tangle of limbs and curses. Marcus hit the bottom hard, the impact driving the breath from his lungs. Something warm and wet trickled down his temple. Jamal groaned nearby. That could have gone better. Rosa helped Calloway to his feet. The older man's face was ashen with pain, but his eyes were alert. Now would be an excellent time for a plan. Marcus spat out dirt and blood. Now we fight back. Above them, the flashlights reached the edge of the ravine. The hunt was on. The gunshots echoed through the ravine as Marcus dragged Jamal behind a fallen tree, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. Rosa pressed herself against the dirt beside them, her fingers trembling around the pistol Marcus had given her. Calloway crouched low, his face streaked with mud and sweat, his expensive suit torn beyond recognition. Hendrick's voice carried through the trees, sharp with command. Find them. I want Calloway alive. Marcus met Jamal's eyes. His brother's face was pale from blood loss, but his gaze was steady. No words were needed. They both knew this ended now. With a sharp inhale, Marcus rose and fired. Chaos erupted. Bullets tore through the underbrush as Hendrick's men scrambled for cover. Rosa squeezed off 2 shots, her aim truer than Marcus expected. One of the men went down with a cry. Calloway, despite his injury, grabbed a fallen branch and swung it like a club, catching another attacker across the jaw. Then, silence. The gunfire stopped. The forest held its breath. Marcus stepped forward, his boots crunching over broken twigs. Hendricks lay sprawled on the ground, his pristine suit now stained with dirt and blood. His chest rose and fell in shallow, panicked bursts. Jamal limped up beside Marcus, his teeth clenched against the pain. It's over. Hendricks' eyes darted between them, his usual arrogance replaced by raw fear. You don't understand what you've done. The people I work for, they'll come for you. Marcus didn't flinch. Let them try. He turned away, leaving Hendricks gasping in the dirt. Rosa sank to her knees, her hands shaking as the adrenaline drained from her body. The wound in her shoulder throbbed, but for the first time in hours, she could breathe. Calloway leaned against a tree, his face ashen, his leg barely holding his weight. He looked at Marcus, really looked at him, and for the first time, there was no disdain in his gaze. Only respect. Jamal exhaled sharply, pressing a hand to his bleeding side. We need to move. Cops will be swarming this place soon. The fallout was swift. Hendricks' empire crumbled within days, his financial crimes exposed, his allies scattering like rats. Calloway, though cleared of wrongdoing, stepped down from his company. His perspective irrevocably changed. Rosa quit her job, no longer willing to be invisible. And Jamal? He disappeared before the police arrived, leaving only a note in Marcus's pocket. Asterisk, still owe you one. Asterisk. Marcus stood outside the burned remains of the office building weeks later, the morning sun casting long shadows over the wreckage. The news had moved on to fresher scandals, but the scars remained, both on the city and on him. Rosa joined him, her arm in a sling, her expression lighter than he'd ever seen it. What now? Marcus glanced at the horizon. Now we live. He wasn't the same man who had mopped floors in silence. The fire had burned away the resignation, leaving something harder in its place. Stronger. The wind carried the scent of ash and new growth as Marcus turned away from the ruins. Somewhere in the distance, a bird sang, clear and bright, like a promise. He didn't look back. If you enjoyed this gripping tale of survival and redemption, make sure to subscribe, like, and follow for more thrilling stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. The next adventure is just a click away.